The Turbo and 2K Show.
What's up, 2K crew? Yes, it is that time of the week again. It is Sunday, which means it is podcast day. Man, do we have a hell of a show for you. And as you can see, I am rolling solo tonight. 2Ks is trying not to die by the hands of Mrs. 2Ks. So you get me all to yourself. You can be as possessive as you want to tonight. Just watch your hands. Be respectful. But got a hell of a show planned for everything. We're going to make a little light of a situation that happened today. Then we're going to dive into the bowl games, and we're just going to have one hell of a time here. So if you guys are over on I do see some folks watching live, so thank you. And if you are watching live or watching the replay, don't forget to subscribe. Like the video. Go ahead and comment. Let's get a conversation started. And if you guys are on the podcast side, go ahead and give us a follow. Because subscribing, I guess, in the podcast realm means people think you have to pay for it. But no, subscribing to a podcast is absolutely free. Just like subscribing to a YouTube channel is 100% free. And it helps us immensely with the show. But if you want to go a little bit above and beyond, go to buyturboabeer.com and buy 2Ks and I a beer, and you'll help the show financially. And on top of that, once you go to buyturboabeer.com, you will also get, or once you donate, you will also get at least two, one. You will get my blog early. So I've been having some really, really, really good responses to that. So I want to say thank you for everyone that reads that. And yeah, you get some power rankings, you get my thoughts on some stuff. So really, really nice read. And if you are in the local area, the Marcellus News, I'm a freelance writer for the Marcellus News. So that's where that comes from. So you get it a little bit early because you get it on Monday, and I don't believe the paper is released until Thursday. So even better. Well, 2K crew, let's jump into it. I wanted to get first, let's talk about the elephant in the room here, okay? I did want to give a big shout out. We're being followed on Twitter by Irvin Santana. How badass is that? I believe that's our first blue check mark that's following us. So, Irvin, love you, brother. Welcome. And for those of you that are not following us on Twitter, it's that's a good question. Let me figure. I think I know what it is. It's hold on. Should have been ready for this. It's at the Turbo and 2Ks. At the Turbo and 2Ks. So Irvin Santana found us. Hell, you can find us. So let's go. But let's talk more about what happened with Antonio Brown. I mean, what the hell's going on with this guy? You would think that he's in the best possible situation, being with Tom Brady, being in that Tampa Bay Bucks offense, and you're coming off a season where you were very impactful throughout the playoffs and the Super Bowl. And while you were there this year, you were very impactful in making plays. And now that all those receivers and all those playmakers are gone, you finally get to come back last week. You make a huge splash in the game. And then this week you lose your goddamn mind. And if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, I'm sure it's all over the internet, but in particular Twitter. I guess it was a conversation between Antonio and Bruce Arians, and Arians wanted him to go back into the game. Brown said no. Arians asked yet again, will you go back in the game? He said no, and then just completely lost his mind, started taking off his jersey, his pads, started throwing stuff into the stands. And it was later, I guess he got in a cop car, left the stadium, and went to catch a flight to New Jersey. Okay, so this guy has absolutely lost it. And of course, one thing that is never undefeated is the internet. So check out some of these. David Spade says, you guys, Antonio Brown is in my driveway. What do I do? I mean, that's completely... it's David Spade, so it makes it completely hilarious. But another one is this was actually a post in the Turbo and 2Ks group, which if you're not a member, facebook.com/groups/turbo, I'm getting a message here. facebook.com/groups/2K crew. And not only is this site badass, and the people that are actively in this site usually post shit before ESPN before you even really get an alert, but yeah, Cody Brazeman shared from Fake Sports Center, Brady picking up AB later, and it's the clip of Old School where Will Ferrell is streaking and his wife is picking him up. Hey, honey, you think KFC's still open? But yeah, just wanted to poke a little fun at that. I mean, hell, why not? Why not? But yeah, it's and then afterwards, Bruce Arians did come out and say that yeah, AB is done, which he said he was going to be done if he acted out again, and then he produced a fake V card. But yet he brought him back, and I have a feeling that if these receivers and everyone else hadn't went down, I don't think we would see Antonio Brown back even before. So I think maybe his welcome has been worn out, and I know I'm poking fun at it, but I think we should. Tom Brady came out and said that he wants people to be encouraging to AB so that he can get the help that he wants. So I think ultimately that's what we all want, because he's a hell of a football player, and it's kind of sad to see this happen. So I will keep you abreast of that situation. But let's jump into the bowl games. I mean, because there really isn't a good transition from that to this, so let's just make it really, really uncomfortable. But no, again, guys and gals that are watching live, if you do want to leave a comment, I will feature you on the show. Let's get a conversation started. Yeah, it'll look just like this, except where it says Turbo and 2Ks, it'll say your name. But yeah, let's go. The show usually rolls a little bit better when we do get some of the 2K crew input. So, but let's jump to, let's kind of preface everything. Okay, we started off New Year's Eve with Alabama and Cincinnati. Following that game, we went to, I think, the game that most of us were most looking forward to, Michigan and Georgia. And I think we all kind of knew what the outcome of the Alabama-Cincinnati game was going to be. I don't think a lot of us thought it was going to be as close as it was. But as far as the Michigan game is concerned, and I was really hoping, I'm sure we'll touch on this next week when 2Ks is here, but man, did not see that coming. And I can officially say that if you guys listened to the show last week, I was on the Michigan bandwagon. I was ready to go. I mean, I had some money thrown on them. I was on that bandwagon officially. So I don't know if it was my fandom that caused this loss or what was going on, but it definitely did not come out the way that I thought. But we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the Bama game. Of course, I am wearing a Notre Dame hoodie, so we will talk about the Notre Dame-Oklahoma State game, as well as the Ohio State-Utah game. It's probably going to put us right at the hour mark. So, yeah, anything else, we'll kind of address it as it comes. So let's jump into it. Hold on here. We do not need this here. There we go. I was wondering why that looked weird. But yeah, let's try this. See if this works this week. And there we go. Look at that. All professional and shit. Let's go. Almost professional. Let's turn that on. All right, now we're looking professional. But yeah, we're this is Google. I did do a Google search on all of these are the same one. Just kind of run down the box score, kind of give you my thoughts, and kind of go from there. But this game started out, Georgia gets the ball, goes down and scores. Michigan goes through, I believe they go 3 and out. Georgia gets the ball again and scores. And I'm like, you know what? Okay, there is plenty of game left. So it really, let's pump the brakes. We really don't need to just give up, overreact. Now, the restaurant I was at, most everyone in the restaurant was Michigan fans, and they were writing this team off after like the 2 or 3 minute mark. And I'm like, holy crap, hold on. So yeah, I was definitely not in that camp. But yeah, I was. This is one. Let me go over the stats here. And this is a Georgia side. Stetson Bennett goes 21 of 31, 310 for 3 touchdowns. Top rusher was Zamir White, 12 carries for 54 yards. top receivers, James Cook, 3 catches for 99 yards and a touchdown. Brock Bowers is an absolute fucking beast. This dude is just, I mean, if you remember back to the first time Alabama and these met, slacking here, you will remember that this dude, he was the shining star in that game. So Brock Bowers is going to be a beast in the NFL. It's pretty much a given at this point. But let's switch over to the Michigan side here. Maybe. There we go. Cade McNamara goes 11 for 19, 106 and 2 picks. J.J. McCarthy, 7 for 17, 131 yards and a touchdown. And as you can see, kind of the big stat that jumps out here is Michigan did not run the ball well at all, or even really to a whole lot of extent. Hassan Haskins, 9 carries for 39 yards. Blake Corum had a fumble, 3 carries for 10 yards. J.J. McCarthy, 4 carries for 24 yards. I mean, this was very, very, especially when we're talking about this season in particular, this is not the Michigan team that we've all seen throughout the whole year. And I think a lot, and this is the thing that I wish 2Ks was here to, because I'm almost positive I know what he would say is, this is kind of what we were not wanting to see, but just waiting to see if this type of game was going to happen. Yes, there was the letdown with Michigan State. Yes, they should have won that game. But this is what happens the last few years with Harbaugh and this team is they build your confidence up, they get you going only to just have you dive, just plummet. And I'm pretty sure this is what this game did. And yes, it was a big litmus test for both teams because Georgia had only seen a defense as good as Michigan's in the SEC title game against Bama. And Michigan really hadn't seen a defense like this at all season. Obviously, the big win against Ohio State. Ohio State's defense was kind of the bugaboo all year. It was, in my opinion, it was the weakest part of their team. Obviously, their offense was just unbelievable, but Michigan's offense, as far as defense was concerned, really hadn't been tested. And then likewise with Georgia, when they got tested against Bama, they got punched in the mouth. And what I was waiting for probably the whole first half of this game was, okay, Harbaugh, you just got punched right square in the fucking mouth. When is this gonna just, all right, you got me good. Here's where I punch back. And it never really happened. And if we look at the scoring breakdown here of the two halves, you've got 27-3 going into half, and the defense figures it out. They give up 7 points in the second half, whereas Michigan scores 8 points in the second half. So this wasn't even though 34 points, this was not a Michigan offense, or this was not a loss because of the Michigan defense. This was excuse me, and in my opinion, this was the Michigan offense just not being able to get started. And that Georgia defense had come under quite some fire from people in the media, us. I mean, hell, if you go back last week, it's like, all right, well, or not last week, but a couple weeks ago, when we were talking, when we were reacting to the Alabama-Georgia game, it's like, okay, this supposed to be legendary Georgia defense got exposed. And not that I'm saying that Michigan's offense is on the same level as Alabama's, but this was a 6 or 6.5 point spread. I think it ended at 6. So 34-11, that's 23 points, even with my Marcellus math. This game, the offense never got on track. One thing I will say, one thing that I am very excited to see is going forward, J.J. McCarthy, First of all, the kid has a fucking cannon for a right arm. And he's probably the most mobile Michigan quarterback that I've, well, not ever seen. Shoelace was probably the most mobile, but couldn't throw the ball worth a damn. And I really do think this McCarthy kid is legit. He is the future of Michigan football. So when, I excuse me, I'm sure you saw the title of this, and it's is the Michigan season a complete waste without winning everything? And of course, if you are a Michigan fan, you want them to win every single year, just like I want Notre Dame to win every single year. And unless you're a Bama fan, that really doesn't happen. I mean, in reality. So where does Michigan go from here? Where does Michigan go from here? And honestly, I think I think Harbaugh has the right coordinators, the right people in place. His recruiting classes are always top notch. So in year 10, was it? This year 10 or 11 that he's been there? Maybe he's figured it out. Maybe he's figured it out. And 2Case and I have said for years that for Notre Dame and or Michigan to compete for a national title, we have to have an elite quarterback, just like Ohio State does, just like Alabama does. I'm not saying Georgia with probably the best name in college football, Stetson Bennett. That doesn't sound like a fucking Texas quarterback. I don't know what does. But dude's legit. I mean, you drop 310 yards and 3 touchdowns. Excuse me. On that Michigan defense, that's pretty legit. That's pretty legit. I mean, dude can spin it. There's always with some of the quarterbacks that have left Georgia, aka Justin Fields, where would this program be if he would have stayed rather than go to ultimately go to Ohio State? But we will never know that. We will never know that. But as far as Michigan is concerned, the groundwork is laid. The monkey is off Harbaugh's back. Going forward, I think that, again, how do you respond when you get punched in the mouth like this? And I don't think that, they were ever tested this early in a game this season. I could be wrong. But just off the top of the dome, I don't remember it. I don't remember it. So I think going forward, Michigan is going to be perfectly fine. They're going to be perfectly fine. And losing some of the defensive guys, I think, is going to be huge, just because it's kind of what this team's been built off of all year. So will that be a huge loss? Sure. But it seems to me that, granted, different defensive coordinator this year, but I think what he's done with other people's recruits has been amazing. So why would it be any different moving forward with his recruits? So I do think McNamara is the future. I do think he is going to make a huge impact on this team next year. And maybe what hurt him a little bit was, obviously it hurt him with the injury to Ronnie Bell early on in the year. But in my eyes, this Michigan team overachieved this year, which is never a bad thing, unless you take that, the 2 steps forward to take 1 step back. And I really don't see this team doing that. I really don't. The hurdle has been jumped. Now it's like, all right, now that it's been jumped, do we fall or do we run? And I think this core that's with the team now is going to run. I really do. So being in the top 4 or top 5 every year for at least the next handful, I think is totally legit. I really do. Well, let's jump over to, let's take a look at Alabama and Cincinnati. This game had the the biggest spread, which normally happens when you get a 1v4, but just that the name and the star power behind everything. You've got an Alabama Crimson Tide team and a Cincinnati Bearcat team. And being perfectly honest, I was very impressed with what Cincinnati did. Very impressed. They're the first non-Power 5 school to get into the playoffs. And if you think about it, this wasn't just a one-year wonder. This is something they've been working on for 2 years. 2 years. They went undefeated last year until their bowl game. And the reasoning they were not, the reason that the committee said that they were not going to be in the Final Four was they started too low. They started too low in the initial preseason rankings, and of course their schedule is garbage. So of course they should win. Now if you fast forward to this year, they run the table again, but they start at a higher rank to start the year. So it was easier for them to get into that top 4 spot. Now, before we get into that, let's run over here to some. Now that I got this figured out, this is pretty slick. But let's go over some stats here. Desmond Ridder, 17 to 32 for 144 yards. Jerome Ford carried the ball 15 times for 77 yards. Michael Young led receivers with 4 catches and 55 yards. So as you can see, not a whole lot of offense, but hell, they only scored 6 points. So you're not going to get a whole lot of offense normally when you only score 6 points. Well, let's switch gears here to Alabama. Bryce Young goes 17 to 28, 181 yards, 3 touchdowns and a pick. This is the major stat right here. Brian Robinson Jr., 25 carries, 198 yards. And anytime you get that many carries and that many yards, you know that dude's eating up clock. And I think that was exactly what Nick Saban did. As you can see, they started off going into the half 17 to 3. He's like, okay, I know my offense is better than yours, so we're just gonna run the ball down your throat and see if you can react. And the reaction obviously did not come. Now, as far as Cincinnati moving forward, this is going to be where Luke Fickell is probably going to earn his money, because the last 2 years he's ridden a hot hand with Desmond Ridder, and I'm almost positive that he is. Let me double check. He is a senior. That's what I thought. So the likelihood of him coming back is almost next to none. And where does Cincinnati go from here as far as their quarterback's concerned? Well, to be honest with you, I don't have the answer, because I'm not that in depth with Cincinnati's roster. I don't know how. I'm sure Luke Fickell recruits probably better than any other non-Power 5 team out there, just because of Fickell's just pedigree in everything else. I really do think that I'm not sure if the quarterback's on the roster now or if he's coming in. What's going on? There's a lot of question marks where Cincinnati's concerned. Now, as far as Alabama's concerned, I'll kind of get into them and give you a little preview here a little bit later. But as far as this is concerned, if you look at some of the other teams that Bama's played in the playoffs since its inception, you know, it was, if you watch the pregame of that game, I mean, it was just beating down your throat that in these semifinal games, Saban's only lost one, which was the very first one to Ohio State, which went on to win the national title. So his track record in these games is pretty legit. But when you have a Cincinnati Bearcats team that that holds Bama to 27 points and is able to get on the board, it comes down to Cincinnati, the type of athlete that's at Cincinnati compared to the type of athlete that's at Alabama. And you could say this with any number of Alabama foes or, you know, other teams that they play. Whereas Cincinnati might have 1 or 2 5-star recruits, if that, where Alabama has depth charts full of 5-star recruits. And we've talked about it ad nauseum on this show, is that one of Nick Saban's greatest assets as far as recruiting is he can get a 5-star player that can go start for any other team in the country and doesn't even start for Alabama. He knows going in that he's going to be a backup. His time will come. I mean, just the whole preaching of the system, and it obviously pays off, because one of the stats that they ran I think it was towards the end of the game, was Nick Saban, since he's been at Alabama, every recruiting class that he has put out or brought in, I guess I should say, every recruiting class that he's brought in has won a national title. Let that sink in for a second. Every recruiting class that Nick Saban has brought into Alabama has won at least one national title. So when you show up to a recruit's door, have dinner with mom and dad, and not only can you say, these many guys that we put through I guarantee Nick Saban says program, put these many guys through the program. These are how many got drafted in the NFL, and these are their contracts. And on top of that, wouldn't you like one of these rings? Because every recruiting class that I've ever put through here has won one. So that's how you can I'm pretty sure that's how you can sell that. You know, when you do have that clout, and obviously the results back that up. So kudos to him, even though it is getting very old watching his teams win all the time. But you have to sit back and just kind of awe in his accomplishments, because it's just mind-blowing. Just mind-blowing. So big question marks moving forward with Cincinnati. Is this their window, and was it just slammed shut? And where do they go from here? It's going to be interesting to see how far this team falls from number 4 after that loss. I mean, granted, the end of the year rankings really don't matter that much, but it's going to be interesting to see where they fall, as well as when it comes forward to the preseason rankings, where do they put the Cincinnati team? So that's kind of the Cincinnati, the Cotton Bowl wrap up. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions, go ahead and drop them in the comment box. Drop them in the comment box. Let's move on to some Notre Dame, Ohio. I know the graphic says Notre Dame / Ohio State, but I only have 4 boxes and wanted to do more than and do 4 games. So this one hurt my heart. It really did. I'm not going to lie. This one hurt my heart. Out the gates, Notre Dame looked fantastic. And the first half was a great showing for the Marcus Freeman era to start. Everything was hitting on all cylinders except for the running game. But you got a lot of play out of Jack Cohen that we've never seen before, and I'm pretty sure he's never done this before. So, and then add on top of that, to do it to a Cowboys defense that was the number 1 ranked defense in the Big 12. Yes, I know, before anybody says anything, no one plays defense in the Big 12. But when you're the top defense against those offenses, and I want to say that they were averaging or only giving up like 285 yards or somewhere in that realm a game, and Notre Dame has blown past that in the first half. But this was a tale of two halves, ladies and gentlemen. This was a tale of two halves. With 1 minute to go in the first half, Notre Dame is up 28-7. They give up a touchdown right at the end of halftime, and then Oklahoma gets the kickoff, goes down and scores. Next thing you know, it's tied. Or no, it's 21-28. And yet again, this team, a team gets punched in the mouth and really doesn't know how to respond. And I know a lot of folks are going to pin this on Freeman, just because he's the guy that revamped that defense. He's the one that took them from being completely out of sorts and barely winning against a Toledo team, and to now, or to finish the season, was on a remarkable run. And what we saw was that defense was just out there for way too long. And one of my main question marks is in the second half when shit wasn't rolling, where was Tyler Buckner? Where was Tyler Buckner? And Tommy Rees is still there. You know, the offensive coordinator's still there. Pretty much the only person from that coaching staff that left was Brian Kelly. So why the different offense? Now, was it Coach Kelly's thing that he wanted to run both those quarterbacks out there, and Tommy Rees was like, no, I just want one. I think we got our answer. I really do. And especially because this wasn't a playoff game. This game really didn't mean a lot. I mean, it probably meant a lot to the players because they wanted to play their ass off for Coach Freeman, you know, get him out the gate on a good foot and kind of break that mold that Notre Dame can't win a bowl game. And after going into halftime, it looked like that was going to be erased really, really quick. But nonetheless, it was another devastating loss. But let's flip over here and let's go over some Oklahoma State stats. Spencer Sanders, 24 of 51, 371 yards and 4 touchdowns. He also was the leading rusher of the team, 17 carries, 125 yards. And so when you're giving up that much, just the yardage is just that very, very un-Notre Dame-esque. But kudos to them. I mean, they obviously took the punch in the mouth really, really good because they went into halftime and made some adjustments and were like, you know what, boys, we're not fucking done. We're not done. But this team coming out of the Big 12, you knew there was going to be some offense. They were just trying to find it, and they found it. They found it at the perfect time. Perfect time. Let's switch over to Notre Dame stats, and the one that pops off the page here, Jack Cohen, 38 of 68, 509 yards and 5 touchdowns and a pick. I don't remember a game where a Notre Dame quarterback threw the ball 68 fucking times. 68 times. Did he have success? Yes. I mean, absolutely. The numbers speak for themselves. But when you cruise down here, and yes, we were with our Williams, the number 1 running back, did not play. Logan Diggs has 9 carries for 29 yards. Chris Tyree, 6 carries for 18 yards. These are 2 very young kids that are going to be amazing, amazing running backs. But it's like, okay, where you would think that a Big 12 team would have more success stopping the pass, and you should be able to run all over these dudes. But it was the exact opposite. Lorenzo Styles had 8 catches for 136 yards and a touchdown. Chris Tyree had 6 catches, 115 yards and a touchdown. Michael Meyer, I touched on the Georgia tight end. Michael Myers, another one of those game changers that is going to play very well on Sundays. 7 catches, 72 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So, moving forward with Notre Dame, there are a lot of folks, like I said, that are very disappointed in the start of the Coach Freeman era. I am not one of them. I am disappointed they lost, sure, because they're my team. They're my team. I already told you, I want them to win every game. But especially a bowl game on, you have 3 or 4 weeks because Notre Dame didn't have a conference title game. I want to say it was 4 weeks. They have 4 weeks to prepare for an Oklahoma State team. How going into that, yes, he was the defensive coordinator, but his system moving forward, it would have been hard, very, very hard to put all of that in place in a month. Let's be 100% honest. Now, I already mentioned it. Where was Tyler Buckner in all of this? I thought for sure he would get a lot of run because my thoughts were Coach Freeman would want to see what he has in him. Cohen's gone after this year. And you also have the Pine kid. I mean, there's some quarterback studs on this team. So where it would have seemed to me that they would have got at least a little pub in this game. But no. Cohen does it all. And where where the offense would stutter throughout the year, that's when Tyler Buckner would go in, kind of give them a little jolt of adrenaline, and the next thing you know, the team sparked up again, and boom, we're on a run. They put together, it's times like that he would go in for a series or a couple plays, get that big first down, keep the drive going, keep that defense on the sideline so they can get a breath while the rest of the game plays out. So I was most shocked that, kind of to stop the bleeding a little bit or to try to get some of that momentum back, Tyler Buckner wasn't a part of any of that. That's my big takeaway. Now, was he unavailable? I don't know. And during the broadcast, they never even really brought him up. So that's kind of why I was like, what the hell's going on here? So moving forward, I think the Marcus Freeman era is going to be awesome. Did he stumble out of the gate? Sure. But it's promising to see the score like it is, 37-35. They had signs of greatness. They had signs of suckiness. But Notre Dame's bowl history just here as of late, I mean, you're looking at 41-14 a lot, 45-14. I mean, there's a lot of lopsided scores. So I know we've talked about it many times on the show. In sports like this, there are no moral victories, but I think with this one, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. Now the game. Oh, Jesus. Utah and Ohio State. Man, this was, if you like scoring, this game was for you. And this was with, an Ohio State team without two of their top three wide receivers. That was the big thing throughout this whole year, is that the wide receiving crew of Ohio State, they're all NFL ready because two of them are going into the draft. So for CJ Stroud to just ball out the way he did was kind of a shock, because a lot of those guys weren't there. So for this team to get punched in the mouth, and they didn't lead until the fourth quarter. And to quote my buddy James growing up, he goes, I don't know why you watch a whole football game, because you only win at the end. And this was exactly the case. Game-winning field goal. Ohio State walks away with the win. But let's take a look at some of the stats here. Switch over to Utah side first. Cameron Rising, 12 for 22, 214 yards and a touchdown. Bryson Barnes comes in after he goes out, goes 2 for 2. His first two, ever college completions for 23 yards and a passing touchdown. Rising was the leading rusher, 11 carries for 94 yards and a touchdown. And Brant Knuthi, 6 catches for 77 yards. Kincaid was another big, awesome tight end, 3 catches, 45 yards and a touchdown. So going into this game, I didn't know a whole lot about Utah. The only thing that I remember even looking at it on pregame was, okay, well, who's Urban Meyer going to root for? So he coached at both places. But as far as that concerned, if you look up here at the score, going into half, it was 35-21. So Ohio State was down 14 going into the half, and then just came in, the switch flipped. And one of the major things about the switch flipping was CJ Stroud, 37 of 46, 573 yards, 6 touchdowns and a pick. And if I'm not mistaken, he was only a handful of yards. Now, this is the Rose Bowl, ladies and gentlemen. This is the granddaddy of them all. This bowl game has been played more than any other bowl game in the sport. And CJ Stroud was a handful of yards away from the most passing yards ever in any bowl game, let alone the Rose Bowl. So huge day for him. Huge day. Travion Henderson has 17 carries for 83 yards. And Jackson Smith and Jigba, 15 catches, 347 yards, 3 touchdowns. Marvin Harrison Jr., 6 catches, 71 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Those boys had a fucking game. Had a game. And they stepped up and had a game because they had to, because they're, like I said, their top 2 guys were sitting this one out. And Smith and Jigba did, with these 347 yards, did set an all-time bowl record. Again, not just a Rose Bowl record, but an all-time bowl record in receiving yards. So I'm pretty sure we saw the resiliency of this Ohio State team. Because let's be honest, let's take a step back and think about it. Let's take a step back. Let's go to this screen while we're taking a step back. And let's take a step back. If you're one of those Ohio State players, you've dominated Michigan for the last 10 years. They get the big win that propels them into the top 4 because they beat you, and then they went on to win the Big Ten title. That's something that you have not allowed Jim Harbaugh to do since he got there. So one would think it'd be very easy for these Ohio State players just to shut it down and be like, oh, fuck it, let's just go to the game. Whatever happens, happens. You know, two of our top receivers are going on to the NFL. They're not playing. It would be very easy for these players just to hang it up, for the coaching staff to hang it up and be like, all right, well, it's the Rose Bowl, but we're Ohio State. We're used to playing for bigger things than this. You know, we're used to not just stopping at this game. We usually have another game. So in my eyes, it would be so easy for any one of these players and or coaches to be like, we got next year. But after the first quarter and the Utes go up 14, I'm like, all right, yep, that's exactly what's happening. It wasn't a punch in the mouth. It was a, do we really want to be here? And I think by the look of the second quarter, they're like, yep, okay, this is embarrassing. Let's just kick it. Let's do what we got to do. Let's do what we got to do and go win this game. And it's exactly what they did. Now, again, I already mentioned Ohio State's kind of bugaboo being that defense. And to give up 45 against a Utah team, you know, that's one of the reasons why they weren't playing in the playoff. So as far as moving forward, I think this offense is in very good hands, obviously. But where's Ryan Day going to get these dudes for the defense? Are there some dudes on the roster that are diamonds in the rough? I mean, obviously, you're Ryan Day in Ohio State. Your recruiting class is going to be legit. Now, moving forward, how are we getting? Because if you think about it, Ohio State's been blessed with some very good defensive players. This year's been kind of an average year. It hasn't been stellar. So is that Bosa brother or, you know, some of those badass, you know, Chase Youngs, are those guys coming down the pike? Because if not, this Ohio State team is going to need to score 48 points a game just to win these games. So out of the team, you know, to kind of rank them, Michigan's going to be doing fine. Notre Dame's going to be doing fine. We still have a lot of question marks with Cincinnati. Oklahoma State, I have no idea because I really don't follow the Big 12. But then Ohio State, I think they're going to be all right. I really do. Now, again, the defensive side of the ball worries me because Stroud is a freshman, so he's going to be there for at least the next couple years. And with these, you know, studs that we already talked about, the underclass studs at the wide receiver, he's in pretty good hands. So as far as offense goes, out of the teams that I mentioned, Ohio State is in the best spot possible. Now, with that going forward, with this win, with all the underclassmen balling out of their minds, where does, and I know we kind of talked about some of the teams after, where are they going to be ranked after these games? Obviously, Ohio State's going to jump up because they lost, and there was a handful of teams above them or Ohio State won, and there was a bunch of, a handful of teams above them that lost. So yes, they're going to move up the rankings, but I want to see not where they land right now. I'm more interested to see where the preseason poll puts them, because you got a lot of firepower coming back. And whereas some of the teams we talked about previous, they have the most important position in tow with CJ Stroud. So where next season is Ohio State going to start? So that's my major question mark with Ohio State moving forward. Now, let's see here. I did kind of tease and I don't have a special graphic or anything cool for it, but give you a little preview. Georgia, Alabama. And I should have done this before, but I want to see if there is what the spread is going forward. NCAA football. Okay. I don't know what the hell an all-star is. Bowls. Okay. Ooh. It looks like we have another. Let me take a drink real quick. Again, this game is Monday, January 10th. And which I always hate them on a Monday, but it's Monday at 8 o'clock on ESPN. And which bowl is this? Does it say? Okay, it is in Indianapolis. For those of you looking, tickets are as low as $502. But it looks like the opening line is Georgia is a 3-point favorite, which is interesting because I want to say that the first time they met in the SEC title game, this was the same spread. Which to me is weird because we've already seen this play out, and Saban just smacked the shit out of Kirby Smart. Let me make sure I got that right, because that doesn't make any sense. Yeah, Georgia's a 3-point favorite. Excuse me. Georgia's a 3-point favorite going into this. Now, just judging from the opening lines, where was it? If you take Bama on the money line, it's plus 130, minus 150 for Georgia. So you might see this swing a little bit just because they try to keep those about at 110. No, the money line, no, the spread. But yeah, this might stay there. Granted, it is a very early line, but I think for all you bettors, anytime Saban is getting points, you better throw your money at Saban. It's not often he gets points. So that has me kind of worried if you're a Georgia fan. Going in there again as the favorite. To me, it's like, all right, well, Kirby Smart has one or two things to do. Either he's going to overtake that throne, or is it going to be a repeat of what we just saw? And I have a feeling, ladies and gentlemen, that when the committee was putting together the 1 through 4, they put the 1 through 4 together so that this was, if these two teams did meet again, they would meet in the championship game and not one of the semifinal games. And which is unfortunate, because if that was their rationale, even though they said it wasn't, but I have a feeling that was still playing in the back of their head. But it's going to be interesting to see, to kind of keep an eye on that line. Yes, 3 points is not a lot, but when you have a team coming off, two teams coming off kind of big wins, which, it is what it is. But these two teams just met 3 weeks ago, and we saw the outcome of that. What's changed in those 3 weeks? Both teams have won. Both teams played very, very good teams to get to this spot. In my eyes, it should be the other way around. Like Bama should be giving 3 points, not getting. So that's very interesting to me. That's very interesting. So that's something that, definitely I will be keeping an eye on. I'm sure every sports analyst alive is going to be taking a look at that because, like I said, it's very, very unusual. Very unusual. And I have a feeling that there's going to be a lot of people throwing money on Bama just because they're getting points. So we might see that line move. And I'm almost positive it will. I would be very shocked if it didn't. So since it is January 10th, we will be meeting again before then. It will be the day before, so I will wait to give you my prediction. And just because I want to tease you a little bit, but B, I want to get 2Ks on here and get his rationale. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you to those that watch live, and if you guys are watching on the replay, don't forget to hit that subscribe bell. There's a button. Hit the notification bell so you get notifications when we go live. And on top of that, part of my New Year's resolution is to get back to making videos during the week. So you'll be getting notified every time we upload a video. So I think that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. It's been it's always a little bit more difficult to talk for the whole show by myself, but hey, we power through shit here. We don't hang it up. We want to be consistent for you guys and girls, But yeah, I'll get everyone out on that. Let's watch this Packers-Vikings game, and fingers crossed that we get some more offense from the Packers, so that my DraftKings team looks a little better and might be able to top that or break that top 3. So I will get everybody out there on this. Have a great week, and as always, Jim Rome, we're coming for you.